The Saudis aren't going to take this sitting down. President Trump has threatened Saudi Arabia with severe punishment if it's proven that they are behind the disappearance of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. But the Saudis aren't backing down and have vowed to carry out retaliatory measures that could potentially spark a global economic disaster. Saudi Arabia is the world's largest exporter of oil, shipping over 7 million barrels a day worldwide. If they were to halt sales, oil prices could skyrocket from $80 per barrel to over $400. This would not only drive up the global cost of petrol, but also any goods that are transported by land, including basic commodities. As a major importer of U.S. arms, the kingdom benefits American companies and jobs, but a freeze in U.S.-Saudi relations could jeopardize this and see the Saudis buy from other arms exporters like Russia or China. Saudi Arabia's public investment fund is also set to invest over $20 billion in U.S. infrastructure, an agreement which could fall through in the event of a diplomatic standoff. Of course, Saudi Arabia does not come out unscathed through all this. The Jamal Khashoggi case has certainly tarnished their image. A number of high-profile figures pulled out of an investment conference in Riyadh later this month, and the country's stock market has already taken a dive. Fight! Hawaii FiveO is losing some color. Back before Fresh Off the Boat was around, one of the only places to find Asians on TV was Hawaii FiveO. Say sayonara to that. Asian stars Daniel Dae Kim and Grace Park have said aloha to the show after 7 seasons because of a breakdown in salary talks. CBS thought it was cool to offer Kim and Park 10 to 15% lower than Wonder Bread co-stars Alex O'Loughlin and Scott Conn. CBS has denied the difference in pay was due to race, but it's no secret actors of color get paid less than whites. According to a USC study, Asians make up only 3 to 4% of broadcast and cable roles. Another big problem is that Asian actors are usually seen but not heard. But what does this mean for Kim and Park's characters Chin Ho Kelly and Kono? Well, CBS could take a page from Hollywood and just get some white people to play Chin and Kono's parts, or maybe just change the name. Hawaii White-O, anyone? Well, that's embarrassing. Armed cops engaged in a long standoff with what they thought was a wild animal, only to realize it was nothing more than a cuddly toy. The hullabaloo started last Saturday night when a farmer spotted what appeared to be a vicious tiger in his cowshed and called the cops. Photos of the animal were shown to an expert sergeant who confirmed that it was definitely a 100% real tiger. Several police units and a dog handler sent to the farm to tackle the wild beast reported that its ears were twitching and that it seemed well fed. Let's just say that the tiger was definitely stuffed, literally, as the cops and the farmers soon found out. Fortunately, everyone was a good sport about the whole incident, though neither the cops nor the farmer have any clue as to who set up the prank. No one seems that concerned either, and netizens seem to be enjoying poking fun at the popo for once. Death threats over a selfie? The Miss Universe pageant contestant from Iraq has been getting death threats in her homeland after posting a selfie with Miss Israel on Instagram. As Iraq's first contestant in 45 years, 27-year-old Sarah Aydin was very popular, but that soon changed after she took a selfie with Miss Israel, Adar Gandelsman. Aydin and Gandelsman took a photo together with the caption, "Peace and love for Miss Iraq and Miss Israel." Although the image has received over 8,000 likes, Aydin was bombarded with hateful comments. But why? Israel and Iraq don't have formal diplomatic relations. The selfie, plus controversy over her choice to compete in a bikini for the Miss Universe swimsuit round, led to Aydin receiving death threats. Things went from bad to worse for Miss Iraq as death threats were also sent to her family who were in Iraq, forcing them to later flee to the US. The Miss Iraq organization also asked Aydin to remove the picture or they will remove her Miss Iraq title. Refusing to remove the selfie, Aiden posted a follow-up on Instagram in Arabic, saying the selfie doesn't mean she agrees with Israel's policies, while adding that she apologized to those who thought it was harmful to the Palestinian cause. Ms. Israel appeared on Israeli television last week and defended Aiden by saying she did it so that people can understand that it's possible to live together. Showdown in the South China Sea. A dangerously close encounter in disputed waters has become the latest flashpoint in worsening Sino-American relations. On September 30th, the USS Decatur was sailing near China-claimed Gavin Reef in the South China Sea's Spratly Islands when it was approached by a Chinese ship. The PRC destroyer Liu Yang reportedly came within 45 yards of the American vessel's bow, prompting it to maneuver to prevent a collision. The South China Sea has long been a site of conflict, not just for the US and China, but for many countries in the region whose overlapping claims on disputed waters are based on their exclusive economic zones. In contrast, China purports to own 90% of the South China Sea based on historic rights, using a nebulous 9-dash line to back its territorial claim. As a way to legitimize and safeguard their alleged territory, they've built up and fortified artificial islands in the Spratlys, effectively creating a network of military bases. Though the U.S. has no stake in the disputed waters, it has repeatedly challenged China's maritime claims through freedom of navigation operations, resulting in several altercations over the years. American and Japanese ships held joint military exercises in the contested region as recently as September. Weeks later, U.S. bombers flew through the area twice in 3 days. China condemns these maneuvers and often responds with air and naval drills showcasing their own military might. Following the USS Decatur incident, a U.S. Navy proposal suggests a large military exercise in the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait as a global show of force to warn China. The conflict comes amidst a brewing trade war between the two nations, with the U.S. imposing tariffs on imported Chinese goods and China retaliating by doing the same. Vice President Mike Pence further fanned the flames after complimenting Taiwan's democratic stance and recommending that Beijing take a page from their book. China is especially sensitive about Taiwan, which it sees as a renegade province and has consistently slammed any efforts to support the island's sovereignty. Analysts say escalating tensions between the world's two largest superpowers are likely to persist, but it's unclear whether they may get resolved somewhere down the line or lead to a global-scale conflict.
Why are India and China at each other's throats over Bhutan? There's a Mexican standoff between Asia's two biggest nuclear-armed powers, and if one side so much as blinks, things could turn bad very quickly. India and Bhutan are in a heated border dispute with China over an area known as the Doklam Plateau. It is claimed by both China and Bhutan. Doklam holds strategic interest for all involved, and India backs Bhutan's claim. Tension over the disputed region has always existed, but the situation escalated in June when the Chinese military began construction work on a road extension into the area. India, at Bhutan's request, later intervened. They sent soldiers and a wrecking crew to stop Chinese construction. All sides have been at a deadlock ever since. China cites a historical claim to the area from an agreement with the British Empire in 1890. However, Bhutan and India say the claim doesn't hold merit. Doklam is near India's Siliguri corridor, which is a narrow 12-mile wide area that connects the country to its northeastern regions. In the event of a conflict with India, completion of the Chinese road in Doklam would allow China to quickly mobilize troops there and potentially sever it from neighboring areas. Completion of the road would present China with other economic and strategic advantages over India in Asia, something the latter is wary of and aims to avoid.
Flights cancelled as cross-strait tensions rise. Taiwan and China are locked in a fierce dispute over new flight routes, with Chinese New Year travelers bearing the consequences. China Eastern Airlines and Xiamen Air have cancelled 176 flights during the February 15 to 20 lunar holiday, affecting roughly 50,000 passengers. The Chinese carriers failed to get approval on 4 flight routes over the Taiwan Strait, which passes within 7.8 kilometers of the country's territorial line at its nearest point. Taiwan says the routes pose a safety threat since they come close to airspace used by Taiwanese commercial and military aircrafts. China Eastern accused Taiwan of violating the humanitarian needs of passengers and their families, while China's Civil Aviation Administration condemned authorities for refusing to give approval. But Taiwan claims it hadn't been consulted over the routes as it should have been under a 2015 agreement. Taiwanese passengers have been advised to take other flights, though military planes will be deployed at Taiwan-controlled Kinmen to transport citizens to the main island.